He pushed himself to walking level and turned down the alley. He could see nothing, not even his feet, as he made his way out. When he got back to the inn, he saw he was in a little park where some of the more demented wrecks spent their time playing chess, and one, appropriately named Chessmaster, with a little top hat proclaiming the same and a cardboard sign stating rates for games, or $1 an hour, was sitting alone at a marble table, putting the game pieces on the board. No one else was around. The park was only a park in name. There was not a tree in sight, not an all of Krapik, only the wires like branches bending out of telephone poles, an electric fence guarding an electromagnetic transmitter surrounded by pebbles, plastic benches, a plastic jungle gym, and a rusty water fountain. Urban planning had come a long way since Martin had brought his daughter there during his mental wars. They'd killed trees to make trees out of trees, the ugly trees of telephone poles. Maddening calypso music faded off in the distance. "Chessmen," Martin puffed, inhaling and exhaling rapidly. "You see these three guys walking this way?" Chessmaster sucked on a straw connected eventually to a bottle of juice. The sound it made was like a throat retching, and Martin had to look twice to make sure it wasn't just Chessmaster himself. "No way this way," he said at last. "I would have noticed." He had a book beside him, a book of famous chess moves. He was setting the patterns before him to see if he could break the old master's game. Now Martin thought chess was about as boring as tears, but this wasn't the time to let this information out. "I think chess is as boring as tears," he said. Chessmaster just stared at him and muttered something about how many trophies did Martin own anyway, but Martin didn't stick around long enough to find out. "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong book again. Keep on doing that. Today I'm reading Eye of Sand, a book I wrote a long time ago, and there's only like one copy of it in existence. Maybe two. Three. I think there's 3 or 4 copies. That's one of them. Don't want that getting out too much. A lot of stuff in there, and don't want anybody to see anymore. Anyway, let's begin with Glastonbury. Propping himself up upon his left arm and looking across the girl's body, he could see the mouth of a big rabbit hole. And beyond that, by the way, that was just a random part of that book. I'm sure there's a lot of better parts. I just randomly picked that. There's better parts of that book than that. Just so you know. I mean, there's bad parts in there too, but that was not a good sampling. I remember that was a rushed section. Maybe some other time I'll show a different part. Anyway, he could see the mouth of a big rabbit hole, and beyond that, lying close under the hedge, an old disused plow. Upon one of the handles of this plow, which stretched up towards the sky, some child or some tramp had tied a fragment of red flannel, such as might once have been an old woman's petticoat. Sight of this object sent quivering through John's mind a sudden piercing sense of the tragic pell-mell of human life upon the earth. That bit of red petticoat tied to the plow seemed to become a symbol, like a gallant flag held up by the old battered sun-warmed earth, that there yet remained, in spite of everything, a hope, a chance, faint, oh so faint, but still a chance, that all the hideous miseries beneath the sun might have, down deep underneath them, some issue, some flickering outlet, some remedial hope. If there is, thought John, it's through a woman that it comes to us now. It seemed to him at that moment as if upon the kindness of woman, upon the yieldingness and patience of woman, upon a certain reassurance, the mere absence from their nature of the horns of the male beast, that their presence gives as of the anonymous weeds and hedge rubble under his fingers, all hope for better things depended. They are all profoundly immoral, he thought. This accursed Glastonbury saint myth that has gone like bad wine, like wine made of the poison berries of that Levantine thorn trees in the churchyard, into so many heads in this degenerate town, has never really appealed to women. They have always seen through it. They have always known it is what it is, for what it is. John, now finding the hand of that clutched at the weeds, growing paralyzed and numb from supporting him so long as he thus leaned upon it, moved his position and sat up straight, hugging his knees with his wrists. As long as I don't move or speak, thought the prostrate girl to herself, he will go on loving me. And indeed, seemed as if Mary was not mistaken in this, for it was as if all that earth-born, sun-warm bread of life, rising from the tops of its millions of golden stalks, had entered into John's being, giving to the thrilling happiness with which he enjoyed her, all untouched as she was, an infinity of protraction. The hum of insects, the shivering music of the larks, as if their very heartstrings were voluble within those little upborne handfuls of feathers, the distant barking of sheepdogs, the monotonous refrain of some invisible shift-chaff in a hedge elm 100 yards away, the sight of a mountainous ridge, slope upon slope, peak upon peak, of huge white clouds on the southern horizon, and, above all, that delicious appearance known as heat waves, which you could see hovering beyond the plow handles like floating nets. He thought, with which the elementals of the air fish for the amorous dreams of plants and mosses and lichen and stones as the sun draws them forth. All these things partook of the sweetness of the girl he loved and became part of that sweetness. How lucky I am, thought John, to have had the wit to escape all the traps that the evil spirit set for nervous, excitable, hypnotized men and women. If I were Sam Decker, I should be saying to myself, what I be doing now? What's my next labor in the burden, O Lord of miseries and sorrows? If I was poor old Tom, I should be rushing madly from wench to wench, trying to forget that I hadn't money enough to live in Norfolk or buy an airplane. If I were Philip, I'd be working 10 solid hours a day, building up my business. If I were Evans, but it's beyond me to know what goes on behind those Silurian eyebrows. But, oh, you wheat stalks and little blind weeds, I'd like to leave some dint, some signal, some impress upon this very exact spot, so that in future times, when some miserable Philip or Sam or Tom comes groaning along this hedge looking for a branch on the chip-chap tree to hang himself on, he may suddenly step into what those air beggars call a pocket of incredible happiness, and think to himself, God, I'll trick the devil yet. The moment finally came when John decided that he would arouse his prostrate companion. Not his prostrate, his prostate. Not his prostate, his prostrate companion. This was a new delight, for, as he knew by experience, a girl is never so provocative as when she wakes up from a long trance of passivity during which her whole being had been charged to overflowing by the electricity of desire, as we all know. He jumped quickly to his feet. Up with you, my treasure, he cried. I'm getting restless. Nothing. Not a shade, not a flicker, not a glow, not a breath did he miss of the girl's vitality as he helped her to get upon her feet. Her benumbed, half-unconscious shyness, for she swayed like a drugged creature when first she found herself erect, the way her cheeks smelt of sunshine and moss, the way her lips tasted of the stalks of grass, the way she glanced with an indrawn chut-chut of tongues and teeth at the untidy state of her dress, the way she half yawned and half smiled, all these things doubted the enchantment with which he now embraced her, turning her this way and that, as he pretended to brush the hedge rubble from her clothes. The very fact that she was such a grave, self-contained, and dignified girl made all her little feminine peculiarities much sweeter to him. Mary, indeed, had got to John what women so rarely get. A lover who was as conscious as another girl would have been, only actively instead of passively so, of the 1,001 little infinitesimal flickerings of physical feeling which create the aura in which the mind functions. John! Yes, Mary? I believe it would have been easier, after all, if we'd done the natural and obvious thing and gone straight to the room after we were married. Now, don't fuss over that any more, he retorted, picking up her hat for her. It was to please her we did as we did. It was her idea. She begged you to wait till Sunday, and we promised we would. Nobody knows we're married but her and Tom and Decker. Perhaps I'll have to wait till Sunday, said Mary. John looked so aghast at this that she kissed him of her own accord. Well, I'll do my best. But how shall I let you know whether to come and meet me at the gate or not? She continued rather wistfully. She may make such a scene when it comes to the point that I'll have to put it off till tomorrow. Oh, I'll come at 9, my treasure, and hang out about there for half an hour, for an hour if you like. And then, if you're not out before St. John strikes 10, I'll know you can't do it. But you still do it. If the woman hasn't fallen into a fit or anything, you will, won't you? I will, said Mary solemnly. And she felt as if she were making a vow before that whole sacred golden cornfield. We ought to have done it as I wanted, he grumbled now, picking up his stick and his own hat. We ought to have done it directly after the pageant. What are they talking? Are they talking about sex here? I don't know what's going on. Now stop, the girl cried with a flushed cheek. I absolutely refuse to go over all that again. You know perfectly well why I wouldn't do it then. You know how mixed up everything was and how... But oh, my dear, don't let's quarrel over that old story now. I'm too happy today. It's all been too lovely today. Don't let go and spoil it now, just at the end. My dearest, don't bring up those old grievances now. Please, don't And she slipped her hand into his with a gesture of intense pleading. John shrugged his lean shoulders with a gesture learnt in France, but he obeyed her and let the dangerous topic drop. Hand in hand, they soon recovered their equanimity as they moved along the hedge towards the gate leading into Bulwark's Lane. John never took Mary's hand without a dim, delicious feeling that he was holding her, as he never yet had held her, undressed and lying up by her side. Well, he thought, tonight! And then as he lifted up the heavy gate to close it, when they were safe in the lane, and took a final glance at that shimmering corn, I must never forget this afternoon. Never, never. Slowly, lingeringly, they drifted down the uneven decline, following the windings of that narrow lane, and as he held her fingers tighter and tighter to his clasp. Oh, and he held her, not and as. Why, oh why, had he not kept her there in the cornfield till it was too late for her to go back to the Abbey House, till there was nothing to be done but just let Miss Drew go, and lock themselves into the Northload room for the night? But it was wiser, always wiser, to accept the appointed end of happy hours. His incorrigible mind set itself wondering now whether this might not be the real solution of the problem of evil, of pain, of deprivation and frustration in the world. Suppose things were so made that there was nothing in life that needed interrupt an eternity of August afternoons like this one. Would that not take away from this afternoon its perfect thrill, its wonderful essence, its strange and abiding intelligy? I gotta stop now. Those are my least favorite sections. The really gross, swooning, sentimental, romancing garbage. Those characters especially. Because you know he's just going to change his mind later. And he's a big phony. Anyway, until next time, I'll see you in Glastonbury. Cheers.